Good morning, good evening, and good day. I am Winston,
And I'm Alexey.
and this is our guest today, Chris. He is a recovering drug addict, a alumni of Tenafly High School, and a father. Um, so, Chris, I know that drugs have a lot of effect on how people behave sometimes, and and they could sometimes introduce new problems into life. How, would you say that? How would you say that this affected your mental health, or how did you get into drugs in the first place?
Yeah, I mean that's always right. A good question in terms of how did I start abusing drugs and how did it affect my mental health. And again, kind of when I started high school, it was just kind of something that whether I was out at a social event or with friends, peer pressure, or just plain curiosity. I remember I had a friend who passed away at a young age. I went on vacation with him and his family, and come to find out that he had passed away in a car accident. He was a young man, and I remember that event being like, well, if you're gonna, if life's gonna be short, you might as well enjoy it. And it just kind of started in high school, and whether it was affecting my mental health or not, I'm not quite sure. It didn't really seem to be a problem at the time because I was doing what I needed to do to stay in high school and show that I was progressing. For me, it was more of just having a good time, and I didn't really see any problem with it, but needless to say, I didn't know that I was creating a lot of bad habits for the future. In terms of just abusing substances that wasn't going to allow me to kind of progress in my life because it would take over my life in such a way that where nothing really else mattered. Really couldn't focus on anything, really didn't want to do anything else. And, I would say that affected my mental health in a way that, I had an inability to kind of show progress in my life.
How would you say that you were able to get out of that sort of vortex of drugs? How? Because I know it's very
Yeah.
addicting sometimes to sort of just get into something that it is such a stimulus for the brain. I feel like that the brain
Yeah.
kind of can't get enough of it, and at that point, just sort of brings you in. How
Yeah,
were you
well,
able
it's
to
a
get
lot
out
of.
of
So
that?
I've been involved with this world for 7 years now. I've been clean, sober, God willing, 7 years on September. So 6 more months will be 7 years, and what I've really come across is basically you reach a point where you can't continue. They like to say the pain gets great enough, right? And pain usually forces us to change. Walls close in, relationships get taken away from you, things get taken away from you, and you really have to say, I need to do what I need to do to kind of get out of this mode I'm in, or my life's going to go nowhere. I'm either going to wind up in jail, I'm going to wind up dead, and I continue. I'm tired of doing the same, right? Insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So from about the time I was 26 to about 34, so 8 years after graduating from Tenafly, it was treatment centers, facilities, institutions, just different things that at the end of the day, there was a period of homelessness there. I ran through every single friend that could help me, and the pain finally got to a point where I was sitting, whether it was a moment of clarity or not, I said, I need to do whatever I need to do to make a change, or this is not going to end well. It had become clear to me that the way I was living was not going to provide for a very fruitful life, a very long life, and I made a decision to kind of get involved with the support group, and do things a little bit differently, and abstain from drugs and alcohol, and really do my best to change my life. And to your point, really, I had learned a lot along the way, so I kind of knew what it was going to take. It was just a matter of doing it. Talking about it is good. The support groups are good, but eventually you got to make a decision, and the word decision implies action. So I had to be kept very conscious of where I put myself, who I hung around with, where I went, and You're right. The drugs become such a stimulus, and I think sometimes that's forgotten. You're so used to taking something, right? The pleasure reward system has been in the brain. I don't know exactly. I'm not, a neurologist, but again, like that's what you're conditioning, right? The pleasure reward center, the instant gratification. I feel good. Let me take something. I feel bad. Let me take something. And you become so used to that immediate relief from whatever feeling, thought that you might be going through that. It allows you to kind of just numb yourself out to whatever's going on in your life, and eventually it becomes problematic. And in the beginning it works, you kind of think you found your magic potion or whatever it may be, and then it kind of shifts on you and it becomes a big problem. So I would say the change was I was just tired. I was tired of what it was bringing to my life. I said, this is just not what I thought my life would be. This is not what I intended my life to be. And, I made a decision, and I've continued and have followed through for the last number of years. And life has been, full of challenges, highs and lows, ups and downs, but it's a lot better than what I had been through. And in a weird way, like going through what I went through has given me a brand new perspective on life that I don't think I would have ever been able to get to if I hadn't been through what I went through.
Maybe I had a question. So you talked about that after kind of starting the recovery, one of the aspects that you started to do is getting involved with the right people. So would you say that initially kind of your addicted was stimulated by tying with the bad company, or do you know some incidents of that?
With, like you saying, just hanging out with the wrong kind of people?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, especially as it got further along, again, in the beginning, I'm not quite sure they were friends, whether they were bad influences, good influences. I'm not quite sure. I had made a decision early on that I was curious with substances. I wanted to try a bunch of them, and, I was going to do whatever I could to get them. And you all kind of feed off each other. There were definitely friends that stepped in that had cut me off and said, we don't want you around any longer. But as you progress further along into, to keep your addiction going, if you will, you align yourself with people that don't have your best intentions at heart. It's kind of like company loves, misery loves company, you know what I mean? Like if I'm doing it, they should be doing it. And like you kind of go down this road of like, we're going to do whatever we got to do to get whatever we need. And I would say as I started to distance myself from that, a lot of the bad actors, if you will, and I was amongst them, I was a bad actor, but they slowly started to dissipate from my life because they really had nothing, again, we were only friends because of what we were trying to do together. So, and at the end of the day, what a lot of people in kind of go through what I go through, and I run 2 recovery houses. People trying to get clean off of drugs and alcohol. I tell them all the time, like it begins with you and it ends with you. It's your responsibility to kind of change your life. Nobody can do it for you. Now there's plenty of people that can help, but like at the end of the day, this is going to go as far as you want it to go. I can't do it for you. Like no one could do it for me. And again, the people that whether they were we kind of just used one another. So I don't really look at them like bad people or bad influences. Like at the time, that's who I decided to associate with, so that's who I associated with.
I see.
Yeah, and going on this topic, I actually have a friend I'm working with on this project for a business, and he has this very tragic story. It's he hasn't done with drugs or anything, but it's his family, his entirety, they split up almost. He has a wife that got crushed by a utility pole when she was waiting for a bus, and they had a bunch of money, right? And the wife was a lawyer, so she was making the majority of income. And they got into this court case over it, and they sued the responsible party for it, of course, and they got this huge sum of money. But the saddest part here is that the main villain here would, I think, from his point of view, the husband's point of view, is her family, because they're so obsessed with money and stuff that they don't think about their own family. It's sort of just like this bad relationship between them. So how would you say to you would distance yourself from like people who could hurt you?
Yeah, I mean, you got to make a conscious effort to do so. I mean, the older I get, I share with people all the time, like I don't want to be around people that are.
I have another follow up question. So, you said that at the start, right, you had some friends that were trying to stop you, some that were kind of encouraging it, and so I wanted to ask you, right, because obviously, there's a stigma against people that are taking drugs, and well, what if you're a friend of a person who is starting to do drugs, right, and you see them kind of going into this loophole? What should a person in that place do?
That is starting to abuse drugs or use drugs.
Like your friend is starting to
What would like
abuse.
my advice to them be?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, again, I mean, I tend to stay away from advice, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's very difficult. People are going to do what they're going to do. I would do my best to talk to them, share my experience with them, and really kind of let them know kind of where this might be headed. I think a lot of us, when we're young, we don't really understand kind of what it is we're doing. It all starts as a good time. It all starts as fun, you know what I mean? And like a guy said to me, my college roommate, like we were in trouble long before we knew it. And it was a young man, young lady that perhaps wanted to sit down and talk, and I could share my experience about what my abuse had led to. Now, whether that was helpful or not, I don't really know. You know what I mean? Like again, sometimes people got to go through whatever journey they have to go through until they realize, like, hey, this is not for me. This is not something I want to do. And like I was saying, advice to other people. Really what I do is I just lend my experience, kind of what I've been through, and I try to keep it on the eye. I don't try to tell people what to do because, again, it wasn't a very effective method with me. And hopefully by people kind of realizing, like, hey, this is kind of what this person went through, maybe I need to make some changes.
Yeah, and there are different methods that you could try and get yourself to get rid of all these negative emotions, I think. For me, I have like social anxiety and stuff. I rarely go out to like people in my school at least. So I always have stress about, thoughts inside my head, and I think what helps me most is writing it down, right? And trying to use that notebook as a wastebasket for all my thoughts that I don't think will help me in the future. So would you say that like what would you say is the best way for people to deal with problems, in life? Is there like a certain thing that works for you?
Yeah, again, right, we're all, whether you're a recovering drug addict, a person in this world, I mean, we all face challenges, fears, anxiety, different things that, we kind of go through on a daily basis and within a range of emotions. And there's a handful of things. Like you said, journaling is a great resource. I read a lot of, not so much these days, but like when I first started, I read a lot of positive literature, positive affirmations. I'm a big quote guy, different things that kind of allow me to think positive, right? A guy told me once, garbage in, garbage out. Like, be careful how do you talk to yourself. You're talking to yourself all day long. So, like, I'm a big believer in trying to encourage myself, understanding, each and every day is a work in progress and that I'm just doing the best I can. Exercise, I just got done playing basketball. Exercise, when I was in one of these institutions, I asked the guy what was the way, because obviously when you're using drugs and abusing drugs, your endorphins get all messed up, and this guy said point blank, exercise is the best thing you can do to increase your endorphin levels and kind of get rid of that stress and all those things. And then obviously, with anxiety is, and this is kind of tied into the mental health. We got a lot of guys in the recovery house that come in, a variety of medications, and, it's always difficult, right? Like I don't really speak about anyone's medication. I just encourage them to, if they're on it, to talk to a professional, work out whatever regimen you think you might need. That's a helpful resource, but with a lot of anxiety and stuff like that, I'm working with a gentleman. He had some fear about doing some estimates, talking to customers, and I encouraged him to keep doing his best to get in front of people and talk to them. And, a couple months in, he told me the other day, like, hey, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm feeling a lot more comfortable. It was like, even when I came into the high school, the anticipation of doing it was more killing me more than what I was going to say. But I've learned just to kind of show up, take a deep breath, and, do my best to kind of walk through that fear. And again, it's and it's just kind of whether you get better with it or not, kind of when you face your fears and walk through them, it gives you the ability to understand that, hey, it's probably not as bad as I'm making it out to be, and I can also get through it.
Yeah, I'm going on this topic of like helping people out, and I feel like I read like a lot of articles and stuff, watch a bunch of videos, movies, and I kind of come up with a few things that I noticed. I watch a lot of comedy shows, and some of these comedians actually turn up being depressed themselves. They are actually dealing with their own demons. They're dealing with their own drug addiction and stuff. This also goes for celebrities and stuff who are trying to make other people happy with entertainment. How would you say that like helping other people out at some points can actually do more damage to yourself, and how would you prevent that from happening while helping other people out?
Well, again, right, I mean, like some of these comedians and some of these people that are extremely talented, right, they use it as a vehicle to not really, it's like almost like a form of deflection, you know what I mean? And again, who really knows what's going on internally with them, and whether they're uber successful, you've heard Chris Farley passed away, a variety of celebrities that achieve great success. Maybe they're not really, like there's these inner demons, these inner battles that we all fight with ourselves. And, for me, I always tell people, like, when your intentions and motives are in the right place, and I'm not saying that they had bad intentions and bad motives. I think it's more of just a thing that they use that outlet to really distract themselves from really addressing whatever is going on with them, you know what I mean? Whatever that void is, whatever that unhappiness is, being on stage almost is a way to really, for them not to have to focus on themselves. But to your point, there is, I see it in my field and people that work in this field, like sometimes it's easier to kind of love somebody else, talk to somebody else, let somebody else know what they need to do to get better while you're not really addressing it yourself. Because who really wants to talk about your own stuff? Who wants to talk about your own, I don't want to use the word crap, like who wants to get vulnerable and really delve into what, is bothering you, and through my own process, like through some of the support groups that I've worked with, like I had to really, it was part of my commitment to change. I kind of really delve into some of the stuff that was bothering me in a sense and really look inward, and it's an inside job. Why is Chris unhappy? Is he trying to live up to what his family accomplished? Is he trying to be something that he's not? and then realizing one of my buddies is like, I'm enough, understanding what I bring to the world is more than enough. I don't have to create Amazon. I don't have to, make a ton of money. I just have to be me, and that is enough to bring to the world. I think this world that we live in, and this is just my personal opinion, is highly materialistic, and people put success. They see the celebrities, they see the big houses, they see the cars, and they don't really look inward for. And this is not everybody, This is so I don't like to label that, but I think at the end of the day, my own journey was about self-discovery and becoming comfortable with who I am. And I think sometimes in this world that can get lost.
Yeah, and you're talking about. I feel like for a lot of people, it's actually the same goes for in a school or any environment where there's these people, and you're always thinking these people are so cool, but you're not looking at what they're really feeling inside. I know there's this other guest coming next week or next week, talking about her son who committed suicide due to depression, and he was like outward, he was very funny, he was best in the football team, I think, he was just doing great, but deep inside he was really dealing with all these depressing feelings and all these feelings that brought him down. And I feel like a lot of people are going to feel like there's this expectation for them to excel at something. Or do you say that expectations of the world and expectations of your friends around you sort of affect how you go forward in life?
Yeah, again, especially when you're younger, right? Especially when you're younger, and again, when it's tough, right? I should be this. I should be going to this college. I should be getting this job. I should be starting a family. All these expectations that we think perhaps whether other people are putting on them or we put them on ourselves, right? And it can almost set you up for a disaster. That's part of why my addiction progressed. Like when I got out of college, I thought I should be further along than I was, or I should be getting a job in New York City, and like I was caddying instead. So, it kind of led me to believe that I wasn't fulfilling, my potential or where other people thought I should be. And then again, right, you get on the Facebook or something or Instagram, and you can go down a rabbit hole where you're looking at other people's lives and you're saying, well, why aren't I as happy as this person? Why aren't I, doing what this person is doing? And again, what I've come to realize is that it's about all of us, but like I have to do what I need to do to make myself the best human being I can. And for me, that starts with not using, drugs or alcohol. Then I can go out into the world and be a vessel of positivity and encouragement, and I can just be me, and me is enough. Chris, can do, Chris is enough, and like again, like I think sometimes we always get like, oh, I could be this, I should be that, I should be doing this, and it can get us into a real problem. And again, it goes back to like kind of your thoughts and what you're thinking. And again, we can't control our thoughts, but again, to your journaling, talking, like I have 5, 6, 7, 8 people that I'm talking to all the time that I'm just running my thoughts by, sharing where I'm at, discussing life in general. Understanding that it's okay. I don't need to know everything. You know what I mean? Like I don't need to know, about, sometimes I feel like, oh, I should know all this stuff. I grew up in a nice area, a nice family, went to a nice school. I should know much more than I know. I should know how to fix a shelf. I should know how to do it. And like I've learned that like that's okay not to know everything and to ask for help, and just understand that life is challenging and it's beautiful, and it's just, there's a lot of things that come at you sometimes that we're ill-equipped to handle. But in those moments, understand that it's okay. Let me perhaps talk to a friend, talk to a relative, reached out to a counselor, and, do my best to kind of understand my emotional awareness, emotional intelligence, and not make a rash decision or a decision that can change the rest of my life forever. And again, it's not easy. It wasn't easy for me growing up, and again, it took me a long time to kind of find not even my stride, but like just find out that like I'm comfortable with who I am and kind of what I offer. And not everybody's gonna like me. I'm not gonna like everybody, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and let's do our best to kind of support and love one another. And life is like when I was your guys' age, I didn't think I'd be here, be here at 40, but here I am. It feels like I'm closer to the end than the beginning. And I'm just going to enjoy as much as I can, the good, the bad, the ugly. Told the other person the other day, I'm just lucky I'm in the mix. Like I'm glad we had a stressful week, a lot going on, but like I'm just glad that I can show up and participate in my life. And I think sometimes we let all that other stuff kind of shun us away from the world, but keep us from like really becoming who we're supposed to be.
And I feel like for trying to find a true purpose in life, for finding your potential, it's very hard for many people. Would you say that if you have like a very tight family, you would be able to sort of use that relationship to be able to improve yourself?
Yeah, I mean, listen, families are challenging, you know what I mean? If you were to look at the family from where I grew up and how I grew, you figure, hey, they're, you know what I mean? Like, shouldn't have any issues, you know what I mean? Brother passed away of an overdose addiction. He had another kid addicted, you know what I mean? And for all intents and purposes, if you were to look on the outside, you figure, hey, everything should be fantastic, This is if I gotten older, man. Like, people are just doing the best they can, parents included. We kind of look at our parents like they're superhuman. They obviously, I look at the way my daughter looks at me, and I have to feed her, I have to protect her, I have to watch after her. So you almost look at your parents like superheroes. And then as I gotten older, I realized they're human beings just like me, and human beings make mistakes. Human beings are not perfect. I will say having my daughter has changed my life forever. You know what I mean? It was just one of those moments when I looked at her and saw this little person, I see, and a lot of drug addicted behavior is a very selfish kind of thing. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to get high. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. I don't care about anybody else. And I looked at this little person and I said, how could I ever do that again? I'd already been clean for almost 2 years, but, like just looking at this person and, I knew my life would be forever changed. I mean, and that doesn't mean like there are moments where it's difficult being a parent. It's difficult, but the family dynamics, the family stuff, and again, not being a professional, not being a counselor or I don't really know how that weighs in for people. I know for me, again, it reached a certain point. Like I just wanted to do whatever I wanted to do, and nobody was going to tell me any different. Mother, father, brother. I will say I am super close with both my parents today because of what we've been through. You know what I mean? Like they saw me through hell, and they were the only people that never really abandoned me. Now they had to set their distance and show a little tough love, but to this day we are super close because of what we've been through, and it's something that I will never forget. So I do my best to kind of, when I try not to make it up to them, but I do my best to show up and be accountable and do whatever they ask me to do, because at the end of the day, they didn't bail on me. But the family stuff, I can't really speak to anybody else's family. It's always difficult to kind of really know what goes on. But I would say this, and I learned this as I got older, that my parents were just doing the absolute best they could at any given moment, which I think most people are trying to do. So.
Yeah, and I feel like for parents, they always try to help you out. They try to support you. And the other night, I was in this argument with my father, right? Because we were just arguing about, he was arguing how I never listened to what he's saying, and I was arguing that I did listen, but just not in the way that he expected. As a parent, what would you say would help people who are currently parents, who can't deal with their own child struggling with these different problems?
Yeah. I mean, for me, again, like I said, part of what I've been through has given me a different perspective on life. Now, listen, she's she's very young, but like I have understanding, and I don't know, and again, it's hard to speak into other people's lives, but I do think you're right. Like the parents hold a lot of great expectations for their kids. They want them to go well out in the world and be happy and be successful. And we'll see as she gets older. I mean, part of, again, my experience knows that, we're not, I want her to go out and be happy, you know what I mean? And whatever that happiness looks like. But I'm under no illusion that she's going to have her own struggles, that she's going to have her own challenges, and that, I can't fix everything. I can't solve everything. And she's going to have to go through what she needs to go through to find that peace that she's looking for. And it goes back to, like, my parents wanted me to stop. They did everything they tried to, but at the end of the day, you try to raise your children the best you can, and then they go out into the world and they got to deal with all kinds of stuff. And it's like, back to the earlier part of the discussion, like, how do you deal with that stuff, and there's just so much that comes at you and so many things that are challenging. But at the end of the day, it's, I don't want to say we make a bigger deal of them than we do, but like in the grand scheme of things, you know what I mean? 5 years from now, what I think is important is probably not all that important. So,
Yeah, for the parents out there, what would you say is sort of, I know that my parents have, they have some expectations, but not, incredible ones that are hard to reach, because I know there are some crazy parents out there who want their kids to be like, have a good job. They want to have, like, these kids have like straight A's and also maintain some sort of life at the same time, which is kind of difficult for people, especially young kids who aren't used to all this pressure of trying to be, have these grades at the same time maintain a good life, maintain good extracurriculars, all these different things. So what do you say is like a good balance for raising your kids not to handle this pressure?
Yeah, well, I use this expression and I'm half kidding, and whether it's a cynical view or not, I'm not quite sure, but at some point, as a child, you're going to disappoint your parents' expectations for you, and then there's an opportunity for some real growth. And I say that half-heartedly, but again, I mean, at the end of the day, as you get older, you realize, like, hey, whatever my parents' expectations were for me, it's not their life. This is my life.
Yeah.
And whether that affects the relationship or not, who really knows, right? And then if they don't accept where I've went with my life and what I've become, then that's their problem. If that makes sense.
So ego is the ultimate weakness of any person, because you are being seen. You're trying to make yourself seem better than you are, and you're trying to portray yourself as a person that's equal in status as other people. So what do you say to manage that sort of thought about yourself?
Yeah. I mean, again, the ego is a funny thing, right? We can either pump ourselves up or beat ourselves down. So I share with people, we're not probably as good as we think we are, and we're not as bad as we think. We're not as good as we think we are, and we're not as bad as we think we are. We're somewhere in the middle. And usually what ends up happening to people with, again, I try to get away from talking about other people, but usually what ends up happening with people with big egos and thinks that they're, God's gift to the world, they usually somewhere along the line get humiliated. And that humility drives a new sense of understanding that they're not as good as they think they are.
One of the main things that comes up a lot is stigma against mental health and stigma against, like, sort of these different issues, especially like you look at a person dealing with mental health. Some people will say just get over it, right? Just deal with your feelings and go on with life, right? But I don't think it really works that way. So what would you say is a general understanding people should get before judging people on mental health and saying that it is not a serious issue? And I think this relates with drugs as well, I think.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's a very difficult topic to speak on because there's a variety of opinions regarding it, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things that, each individual has to go. It's very difficult, right? Like, because I could have an opinion, another person can have an opinion, and it's a very, because you really don't know where somebody is at. But I really do think, for my own, and this is just my personal opinion, there is a combination of, in the mental health side, I was fortunate. I never really had to deal with any of that stuff. Like, I always had a pretty positive outlook on the world, and just, being able to cope with the world and deal with the world, especially when I was drug free. I think there is a combination of perhaps some therapy, perhaps some medication. Whether there's a stigma or not, there's always going to be a stigma. You can't control what other people think, other people feel, and that can weigh on you as well. For me, I don't personally care what anybody thinks about my past. Like I don't really care. I don't owe anybody an explanation. I don't. So for me, that's whether you have a stigma or not, that's your own stuff. That's your own. If that's the way you view the world, by all means, go ahead. I don't think it's going to serve you very well, nor is it going to serve you well if you look down upon people that might be struggling with mental health. But just like I had to do, you got to ask for help. You got to kind of work through whatever. Be honest, be open. Talk to people, gain a better understanding of kind of where you're at as a human being. And then, you are going to have to take, and this is just my personal opinion, you got to take some action steps to kind of walk through things that you don't feel comfortable doing. But first, it's, having some identification and awareness of kind of where you're at, and then kind of walk through a journey that's going to provide you some relief and some peace of mind. And with that peace of mind, you won't really care what anybody else thinks.
And talking about positivity, there's a lot of people who, I think, especially dealing with mental health and dealing with their current problems, positivity is a very hard thing to reach. Is there like a certain thing you feel like, other than family, that you sort of reach for, other than helping people, other than family? Is there like a main goal you feel like you are striving towards that keeps you going?
Yeah, I mean, it's work related. Like I said, it's, I talk to, my mom, not to bring her much into it, but she's recently got her life certification, mastery life certification. I bring these up to people. She talks about 4 quadrants of life for a richness of life. And it's your vocabulary, which is your job, your mental health and fitness, your relationships, and time, money, and freedom. And these are 4 quadrants that you can really focus on that can enrich your life. And she walks you through a whole bunch. I haven't really sat down with a session for her, but it's a whole bunch of things that you can kind of focus on in terms of how you want to enrich your life. You kind of identify one area that you think you might be struggling with, and how can you kind of address that so you can experience a richness to life. And, in terms of positivity, man, like I would read, like there was a book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. I would read that every morning. Positive thinking, little quibs, little tidbits. I have quotes posted all over the place. This encourages me to get out and face the day and kind of remember that, this is just, life is worth living kind of thing. This is, some guy told me, it's not a dress rehearsal. This, for as far as I know, this is the one shot I got. Whether you believe in reincarnation or going to another life, for me, for this being, that's all I know. So how can you get to a richness of your life? And richness looks different for everybody, you know what I mean? And again, only you, the person, can determine that. So, and like I said, I'm very active. Sports are a huge part of my mental health, like going for a walk, right? Getting to a support group meeting, talking to a friend, like someone you can rely on, someone you can trust, journaling, right? I mean, these are all things that we can do to encourage our, positive mental health, positive life. You can work with a therapist, a psychologist. Like, let's get to, because what we see a lot in the drug world are people are prescribed a ton of medication that they might not necessarily need. I'm not opposed to some medication, but like, let's work with somebody to really kind of identify what it is we might need to do to get stable, and then it's on that person to kind of follow that regimen. So, their life is, worth exploring, continue to educate yourself, continue to read, continue to strive for whatever makes you happy. And sometimes that takes some time to figure out.
Yeah, and you're talking about religion and routine, right? Do you think that there is a certain way people can get into like a rhythm.
I mean, really, I can speak to that because it's very important. Human beings like structure. That's one of the principles of our house. Structure saves lives. A kid said it to me a long time ago. So yeah, it is important to get yourself into a routine, get yourself into a structure, whether it's writing something down, having a daily schedule. It allows you to kind of work towards things in a given day that'll get you to a further goal. So really encourage people to write stuff down, really kind of know what your structure looks like on a day-to-day basis. You start sitting around, going down a rabbit hole on your phone, whatever that may be, or whatever it is you reach for, like you can wind up in a bad spot.
Does religion or philosophy help you sort of get anchored, or does it sort of do the opposite in some ways?
Yeah, again, I mean, part of what I've been through, man, is giving me my anchor. You know what I'm saying? Like, I realized how bad things could get. So whether that's family, whether that's religion, belief in something greater than yourself, bigger than yourself. People have to go down whatever individual road that might be and really find out for themselves what that anchor is. For me, it was, in a weird way, my addiction. You know what I mean? That kind of moving forward has provided the anchor that I need.
All right. That was your last question. Thank you very much for coming on, doing the podcast.
No worries.
Once again, I am Winston.
And I am Alexey.
And this has been Mental Medicine. Have a great day, guys.